All right, hello and welcome to yet another session here at the Gosu Academy. I want to just get straight into things here, and I want to show you the best command that no one, well, I say no one uses, but way too few people use. If you're watching this session either live at the Gosu Academy or through the YouTube video, this setting is a must-have. Survivors always on. Put that to yes. What it does is that when you're dead and you open your scoreboard, normally you will see just the like you will just see the money and the score and everything. But by having survivors always on, you will also be able to see how many people were alive from the previous rounds. And for some people who don't have this setting on, they can still see it, but they have to like hold down tab, then they have to right click, then they have to click on another thing, and then it shows up. So I definitely recommend having this setting on always, because it will just, first of all, make your economy management much easier. And that's really what this section, I keep saying session is about. So with that now said, I want to just quickly move on over, and I'll share a different part of my screen. So let me just share my YouTube here instead, because this session, said it right this time, is about simplifying Counter-Strike economy. And I've been thinking about this for a while because we did do a economy lesson earlier. If you haven't watched it, I recommend doing so. As you can tell, it's a little over an hour long. But basically, we went through economy. And economy is one of the most important things in Counter-Strike. It sounds kind of crazy, but understanding what buy your opponents are going with is going to be so much easier for you. Because if you're playing against pistols or if you're playing against like a full buy, it should massively change the way you approach rounds. But I know economy is something that's, first of all, hard to track, and also just if you're sort of new to Counter-Strike, it's super difficult to understand. So I've been tinkering about, I've been trying to see if I could find a way to simplify economy. And I've come up with, maybe not the answer, but I've come up with a answer. And this session is going to be about exactly that, but also to the people watching the session, it's also a little bit of a plea for help, because I'd say 50% there, but I'm missing the other 50%. And I'm hoping maybe someone who watches this, what I'm telling you, will have a little bit more time to commit and will be able to actually simplify this to the point of almost mastering it, even if you have no clue how this works. So that's a little bit of an intro. Sorry, did you want to say something?
I said deal, I'll help.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So basically, I guess I can ask you in the academy here, have any of you ever looked into how to count cards at the casino?
I have, but it's still pretty complex. I mean, I think, it requires a certain mindset to be able to do it.
Yeah. Yes, I am no expert on this, right? I just watched a couple of videos, but basically, just as in this video, right? They have this like high-low count system, and what it basically is that you have high cards, you have low cards, and they either get defined by a +1, a 0, or a -1. You can see it here on the thumbnail on the side as well. And let me see if actually we can listen to this for a little bit.
That means there's fewer of them that can hurt you in future play. And the third and final group of cards is the neutral cards.
So let's see if we can find this.
Cards, they have a count of +2 cards. The true count is simply the running count divided by the number of decks remaining, rounded to the nearest half deck. So for example, one deck.
Well, let's see the example here, right? You have an amount of decks.
So that gives us a true count. Or we're going to use a betting unit.
So now he is pulling out the cards, whatever. And as you can tell, so here there's like an ace and a jack. They are both high cards. That becomes a -2. Here you have one high card and one like medium card, let's call it. You get a -1. this is, you know, a king, that's a high card, and 8 is, again, a medium card, it's a -1, and then over here you have a...
Now we have to play
What do you have, actually? I think it's a jack and then a 5, that becomes a 0, because you have a, I guess, a -1 from the jack and a +1 from the 5.
strategy as we're keeping track.
So, and then you can see, oh, sorry, it's a 3. But yeah, basically, like, you have a high card, you have a low card. Now it becomes a +1 because there is another, like, low card in the mix. So this whole system is defined by pluses and minuses. And, you know, when I heard about card counting, whatever, I always thought that it was literally you're counting, like, how many 2s are out, how many 8s are out, and stuff like that. But they have chosen to simplify it because it's really difficult. And they do that by kind of, you know, using pluses and minuses. So I've been doing the same thing. Let me just make sure that I don't show you something strange here. I probably don't, but just to be sure. It's just some notes from earlier. Okay, let me get you back on track here, and then I will get you back on track here as well. Let's put you over here. Let me instead stream my entire screen. So, okay, so in a notepad, the way that I've chosen to think about the economy system is that when my, let's write it down, when my opponents win a round, I can predict how much residual cash they have by checking the amount of players alive. This is like basically how you read the economy of Counter-Strike. So when my opponents win a round, I can predict how much, I use the word residual. If you're not like a native speaker, I'm not, but this is probably not a word you've heard so much in Counter-Strike, but basically residual is like leftover, right? So how much leftover cash the opponents have by checking the amount of players alive. And so you can kind of do this. So the way I see it, and this is based on a sort of rule of thumb or theory that I've mentioned, I think, probably 10 times in the Gosu Academy. I have this golden rule of 3. And basically what the golden rule of 3 is that if the opponents survive with 3+ players, so 3 or more players, they build up cash, right? Why is that? It's because, actually, let me write it like this. If the opponents survive with, let's call it -2, so like, not -2, like 2 minus, I guess less than, how would I do this correct? Like this. I don't need, bro, this is the part of math that I had when I was like 12. That would be, I feel like it would be like this, right? Surely. Okay, let's say that this is less than 2. If that's wrong, then everyone flame me in the comments. Or in Academy, I don't mind. But anyway, if the opponent survive with fewer than 2 players, okay? 2 players, they are unable to build up cash. And, like, let's up a bank. Let's write it like this. Up a bank. So, let's get to the why. Well, the why is that true? It's because 3 players, so 3 alive players can drop for 2, and 1 will save money. 2 or fewer players, fewer alive players, cannot drop for 3, so they will not build up a bank. I think this is something that, you know, probably a lot of people who are just level 10, they understand kind of the golden rule of 3, but they don't really think about it when playing. And I suggest definitely doing that, because it really makes a big difference if your opponents are 3 alive or if they're 2 alive. Even just that means that they're either going to build money or they're going to be, well, not necessarily losing money, but at least, you know, if you only have 2 players alive, they can drop 1 weapon each, but the last guy has to buy for himself, and so everyone is spending everything they have. That's the idea. So this card counting system, where we have, you know, high cards, medium cards, and low cards, you use, you know, +1, 0, -1, and stuff like that. And I have started thinking of ways where you could simplify this concept, basically. So what I would characterize this as is that if the opponents have 5 players alive, we can count that as a +3. If they have 4 players alive, we can count that as a +2. If they have 3 players alive, we can count as a +1. If they have 2 players alive, we can count that as a -1. We can count 1 player alive as a -2, and we can count 0 players alive as a -3, I guess. So I don't think this system is perfect yet, and maybe it will never be. At the beginning, I was considering putting, 4 players alive. I think I'd actually put this like this still. This was actually how I thought it out the first time. So I think actually this makes it more simple. In the end, it's sort of the same. It's just using different numbers. But basically, now we have written this in a way where 5 players alive, what does that mean? It means 5 players build a bank. 4 players alive, what does that mean? It means 3 players build a bank. Okay, how does that make sense? Well, one player has to drop for another player, and that other player has to buy armor and nades. So the person who dropped cannot build a bank. The person who got dropped can kind of not build a bank. But the 3 players who survived and don't have to drop, they don't have to buy armor again, they only have to repurchase nades. So they are going to build up some sort of bank. We talked about it, the golden rule of 3. 3 players alive, we can give this a +1. Why? Because 2 players are going to drop, and the last player who didn't drop, he's going to build up some kind of a bank. Then we move over to the negatives, and the negatives is when the opponents are 2 players alive. This we give a -1. Again, why is that? It's because 2 players alive, it means that 2 players can drop. They kind of use everything they have on dropping, most likely. The players who get drops, they are going to buy armor, they're going to buy nades, but there is definitely the last guy who doesn't get a drop. He has to spend absolutely everything he has. So we'll call that a -1 just because it kind of needs to be a negative number. It means that if there were 2 players alive and they lose the next round, so actually let me say this again just to make sure that it's very clear. If you have less than 3 players alive and you lose the following round, you are most likely going to be broke. And that's what we're basically trying to define by using the card counting system to try and simplify this, basically. So I know that it feels probably not simpler right now. That's because, it's still a work in progress. But I do believe there would be ways to use this to simplify. So again, talking about 1 player alive. Why is it a -3? Well, that's because the 1 player who survived can drop 1 weapon. And then the other 3 players, they have to spend absolutely everything to buy. So you could ask the question, especially if you are kind of new to Counter-Strike, well, if they are 1 player alive, why would they want to rebuy into the next round if it's hurting their economy? Why don't they take, an eco or do a half buy? And there's a very simple answer to that. And the answer to that is that when you win a round in Counter-Strike, you always want to buy fully into the next round. There is no other scenario. That even goes in a situation we've also defined here. 0 players alive. It's a -5. Just maybe I should even write this. This assumes winning the round. Okay, so it's only in cases where we, like this team, wins the round, and then we can take the amount of players who survived, and we can do this to the system, basically, right? So the issue that I have with this system, I guess, is that so it kind of has to Sorry, I'm just thinking a little bit. I guess actually it doesn't even necessarily assume winning the round. Obviously, if you save with 5 players, you are still building a bank unless you are on T side and you let the clock run out, right? But that's also like really niche cases and where this probably isn't the best. So also just for anyone who's made it this far in the video, even if it doesn't seem simplified yet, I'm just going to try to explain you the concept, because maybe there will be a really good thing that, like, maybe this sparks a thought in someone who can actually simplify it, maybe someone who has more time or has a better understanding of systems like this in other games, because that's definitely not something I've worked with in any other sports. But there will come a later part of this video where I will simplify it further to the point that even a beginner will be able to apply it to their matches, basically. So anyway, I'll actually for now just remove this. Let's just keep it to this, right? So how we would do it is simply we would go and look at a match, and then we could use this point system to constantly keep track of the economy. And I was thinking we could do that today in our session, and we can see how kind of accurate this is. So for this to happen, I think I will just use Skybox. So I've been doing a little bit of anti-strategy, you can probably see. And now I'll just go and pick literally any team. So is there anyone here who has a team we can look at? Can be literally any team in the world. Okay, since no one is responding, I'll just pick a team myself. Let's just look at FaZe.
Discord is down.
Oh. Okay, interesting. Well, I've still obviously got a video. So the person you heard is my lovely fiance, who just informed me that Discord is down. I was thinking, like, why is no one answering? But this checks out. I'll probably give it just a couple of minutes. We can keep talking about something. Yeah, so anyway, that's a first. I've been doing this Gosu Academy coaching sessions for, 1.5 years or something like that, I think. At least more than a year. Never had this happen before. I was just wondering as well, because I just got messages on my phone. And normally I only get messages on my phone when I close down Discord on my PC. So, interesting situation. I guess to kind of fill the void, let's just take a look at some things, and we can always get the other people along at a later time. So if you're unfamiliar, by the way, with this website, what it basically does is it's a tool that works for many things. But one of the things it does work for is that you can press different rounds, you can skip through them and stuff like that. And I'm pretty familiar with this program. What you can do also is you can press show freeze time, and then you can actually see how much money did each person have in the freeze time. You can see how they're choosing to buy. And I think that's going to be really nice for this particular session. So this whole money system that we have been trying to simplify or like develop, I guess, by using these numbers here, we can try to predict the buy pattern of the opponent. I'll show you how it works. So in the pistol round, this is let's call it a pro tip, even though it's actually for beginners. But some of the people who I do individual coaching with, they sometimes save money in pistol rounds. And I mean, I could prove it to you. Actually, why I won't? Like, I might as well. So this is a pro match. This is 6 pistol rounds. And look, everyone here on the CT side has bought up everything they can. The people who have any money left over is the people who buy armor, where you will end up naturally with $150. You see, everyone has at max $150. It goes to the next pistol round. When they exit the spawn in the pistol round, everyone has at max $150. Everyone here has at max $150. Everyone here has at max, this is a long freestyle, man. $150, and this is going to be the case in, I'm not even just saying 99.9% of pro matches. This is literally the case in 100% of pro matches. If there ever would be a match where someone didn't buy to lower than, like if someone kept even $200, that wouldn't make sense. And so if that happens, if you watch a pro game and you see this happening and you know about this video and you come back to tell me, oh, but that's not true, I've seen it in this and this round, blah, 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 I will tell you straight up now, that is a mistake. No one does that on purpose. And so when I do individual coaching with players who are, at a little bit of a lower level, sometimes they save money in the pistol rounds, and it just does not make sense. Like, straight up, it just doesn't make sense. Anyway, this money system, it's only really to predict, the buys. So, just talking about like theoretical Counter-Strike. Let's remove the filters here and find all the rounds instead. So it doesn't really matter who wins the piss round. Yeah, I'm getting Discord messages, but it's down on my PC, which is crazy. Anyway, the show must go on, so let's continue until we can reconnect. So it doesn't really matter the outcome of the pistol round. In this case, FaZe is going to win it, but it might as well have been Pain. We can move to round 2, and just talking a little bit again, theory about economy here. FaZe won the pistol round, so if you look at the money, they obviously have more money than Pain. Pain have the choice of ecoing or what's called a force buy. A force buy is when you kind of feel forced to buy. So it's, you don't have good enough money to actually have a good buy, but you also don't want to save. What is the purpose of a force? It's also that, even if they buy now and they lose the round, if they get a lot of kills, they can hurt the economy of FaZe. And since FaZe don't have that much money, because it's the second round, it can be worth force buying to try to catch FaZe out before they build up a big bank. Because, yeah, I mean, that's really what the session is about. As you can see, FaZe buy everything. These guys buy a whole lot. Yeah, they actually bought everything as well. And now there is the goal of winning this round, obviously, for both teams. So here, this is kind of interesting. Also, let me just do this real quick and mute my WhatsApp tab. I kind of low-key want to just send a quick message to the guys on the academy. Yes, okay. Okay, now at least they are informed, and I need to give you guys my screen back. And Discord is still crashed. So anyway, let's try to focus on the session at hand. So this is actually something that's quite interesting with economy as well, is that here this round becomes a 4 versus 4. I can give you a bit of a trick actually. If you are a beginner, you probably don't understand much of economy. If you are a bit more of an advanced player, I would even say, like level 10 FACEIT player in EU or stuff like that, you probably somewhat understand the concept of saving, right? So here, what happens is FaZe get the bomb plant, Pain no longer think that they can win the round, and so what is actually best for them from an economic viewpoint is to stay alive and save these weapons so that they can go and try the exact same thing again next round. But there are certain maps where the bomb radius when it explodes is very big, and Inferno is one of them. Actually, can you see that? Yeah, no, not really. It doesn't really show on Skybox. Anyway, so on certain maps, you can do what we in my team call Astralis save. Inferno is an example. Ancient has a really big bomb radius. Nuke has a really big bomb radius. Let me see. Anubis doesn't have. Mirage kind of has now, but it's not really as big as, Inferno, Ancient, and Nuke. And on Train, I think also the bomb is just pretty normal. So yeah. Anyway, the point of so I guess it's like the you know those, like, I don't know if it's like a meme, but with like level 1 thug, level 30 gangster, level 99 mafia boss. Okay, like the level 1 thug. So the beginner in Counter-Strike will look at this round, which is a almost unwinnable 4v4 retake on one of the hardest maps to retake on, and will say, I'm still going to try and win this round. That's the level 1 thug, okay? The level 30 gangster is thinking, maybe it's better to save, because if I save these weapons, I can, purchase into the next round. But the Mafia boss, right, level 99, is very good. Might, in a situation like this, consider an Astralis save. And that's what we're going to see out of Pain. So, at some point, they realize they can't win the round. And instead, you can actually see, they have 3 people in this space. But when this Astralis save call comes in, what you'll see is Davideus moves over to bottom of Banana. And actually, many of them do. So, what is the purpose of this? Is because the CTs have shown a lot of presence from CT. And since the bomb radius is quite big on Inferno, it's actually huge. Now the CTs, instead of going with the option to save their weapons, is trying to kill as many Ts as possible, because if they do that, they have a bigger likelihood of winning the follow-up round, since the T economy will be hurting. And that's again coming down to this system. We can talk about this. So you see them gathering here. The Ts are saving on Banana. And now they're going to fight them together. They're going to get 1 kill. They're going to actually break the golden rule of 3. FaZe now only alive with 2 players. Now bomb is going to blow very soon. Both players are low. They do actually survive. And they actually make it out as well. So that's pretty important. Look how far away from their bomb they are. They are pretty low on HP, but they actually do lose. Kerrigan loses 36 health here. That's pretty crazy. So what does this mean for FaZe in the next buy round? Is that looking at the economy, we have 2 people who saved, Elish and Kerrigan. If we would give this a score according to this system, right, it would now mean going into round 3, we are looking at -1, right? So there were 2 players alive, we give it a -1. So now we see Kerrigan dropping, and he has to rebuy. He loses all his money. Elish drops, a Mac-10 has to rebuy. He loses all his money. Now, Brokey, I believe he bought for himself, because he had the most money. And now Rain has $1,000 basically. Frozen is also going to have to buy. Well, actually, he got a drop from someone. Oh yeah, okay, so Frozen got a drop from Kerrigan. So I guess in this case it's like, if FaZe were to now lose the following round, because we have them set at -1, it means if FaZe were to lose this round, they are not going to be able to buy in the next. That's basically what this number means. Is like, if the number is greater than 0, they could be able to buy. And if the number is less than 0, they shouldn't be able to buy. So we'll see it here. Now, we're just going to skip this round. But next round, or actually FaZe win it again. How many were they alive? So here there were 5 alive, right? You can see it at this moment. They don't have a whole lot of money. They are 5 alive. We do the math. So we had a -1. The way I would probably note this down would be, now we have a +4. So obviously you just do -1 +5, because there were 5 alive. Now we have a +4. And how does the economy look going into this? They have a lot of money. Like, they have basically enough to purchase like, let's put all the money together just real quick. It's like 3K, 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 that's 9K, right? Then we have 4,500, so that's 13,500, and then we have Rain with like 4K, so that's 17,500. Let's say each player in a buy round on T side will want, I would argue, 3,700 is like bare minimum, 4K probably a little bit better. So if they have 17,500, I think was what we came up with, right? If you divide that by 4,000, that's not going to be enough for 5 players. That's pretty quick maths, right? This means if FaZe were to lose this round, they are not going to probably be able to afford weapons for everyone. One thing to take into account is that even if they lose this round, they're all going to get $1,400 on top, which works out to quick maths. It works out to $7,000 if I'm not mistaken, which puts them at 24,500. Is that enough? Well, yes, it pretty much is. Obviously, they will have to probably buy, grenades and stuff like this as well. But it is enough for another buy. This is because of the plus, basically. And they have +4 in this case, so they should realistically be able to buy. We can just skip through the round, basically. They lose, they have 0 people alive. We go into next freeze time. Look at the money. So here they survived with 0 people, right? So we have the +4, we do -5, and then it becomes -1. And if we go out of freeze time here, you can see we again are at a number below 0, which means if FaZe were to lose this round, they're going to be broke. FaZe are going to win it again, and they're going to be alive with 2 players. So actually, this is going to give them a -1, which puts them at -2 now. And this will again probably come into play. We go to the next round. There were only 2 alive. 2 cannot drop for 3. It's the golden rule of 3. And now Elise drops the AWP. And who was the other guy who was alive? I think it must have... Wait, did someone die to the bomb? Yeah. Oh no, he got shot right at the end. So this is actually my bad. I jumped the gun a little bit. So it's actually a -4. So Elise was the only guy who survived. Luckily he saved an AWP. But if you go into the freeze time of the next round, you see Elise has to drop. And you see again, like, we have a negative number here, right? That means, since it's like a -4, it means there is no one who has like basically any residual cash. Brokey has a little bit, but they're pretty broke, which means if they lose the next round, they are going to be pretty broke. So they're going to lose. No, sorry, they're going to win this round. Okay, man, this is actually tough demo because they keep winning, right? So they survive with 4, which gives them a +3. So -4 + 3 gives them a -1. We can see, is that going to be true again? It's still a value lower than 0. So I would say in this case, it probably isn't exactly true. We can see what happens when they lose this round. I think they might still buy, because they have 3 people with money. Obviously, they are here at a -1, right? So it's a value quite close to 0. So, for example, let me try to explain this. So here, where they had a -4, right? It means if they are to lose this round, they are absolutely broke. But after this round, because they were alive with 4, we put them at a -1. And this means that if they lose this round, it's a value pretty close to 0, but it's a negative number. So because of that, they probably will not buy if they lose this round. I mean, we see it here, right? Survive with 0. So that is now a -6. And it means that if they were to lose... Oh man, it's actually kind of hard to explain it. I hope it makes sense, but it's difficult for me to tell because Discord is still down. So because it was a -1, it was a value pretty close to 0. I'll actually remove this -6 because it's just confusing right now. But basically, going into this round, the value we had was -1, right? And it means it's a value that's negative. So if they lose this upcoming round, they're going to be broke if they buy. But also because it's a slightly negative value, you can see what it does to FaZe actually. 2 of them are just with pistols because 3 people had money, and this -1 kind of is talking about how many banks they are missing, right? So the number we had was -1. It turned out in this case it was -2. But it's still pretty accurate, right? And then when they lose this round with 0 alive, now it's a -5 on top of the -1. We put them at -6. This means, do they have any money next round? Well, they have a -6. So they absolutely don't have money next round. This is a round where they will eco, and so on and so on. So, first of all, I hope this makes sense. It is kind of just a way where my thought is, if you don't understand the money system in Counter-Strike, this is a way to simplify it. And it's basically simplified in a way that you don't even have to think about economy at all, almost. All you have to do is just think about every time the round restarts, just write down in the chat what the value is, right? So the first value we had was -1, but then they stayed alive with 5. Then the next value was +4. And that way, it takes you so little time to actually track the economy. Because you don't even actually have to do any conscious tracking of the economy. You just have to write down how many players were on the other team, defined by pluses and minuses. It's exactly the same as the card counting, basically. And I do think that it did make sense in this demo, at least on this half. So, since I said there are still things that I'm yet to figure out, well, that's because there are definitely things I'm still yet to figure out. Like, what happens if you save on T side, and you know, 3 people save, for example. Well, they are going to keep their weapons, but they are not going to build up a bank because they don't get any money. How does the system take that into account? That's one thing. Another thing, which is, we could probably use the demo for that, is that at this point, when FaZe lose the round, right, we noted it down. It was a -6, which means, when they lost this round, they are going to be broke. And they were. So now they were on eco, right? But obviously, when they took an eco and now lost with 5, because they didn't invest into the round, I cannot give them a further -5, right? Because they were at -6. If I give them another -5 now, it's -11. But that doesn't really work, because now they were on eco. So I will say this is like the worst thing about this system. This, like, thinking about economy as the card counting system, is that for the round we watched previous, we had them at a -6. And instead of now putting them at -11 because they lost again with 0 players alive, we actually have to write reset. So this would be a great time if I had access to the academy, but Discord is still dead. So what I would ask is, why do we have to reset it? And the answer to that, since there's no one here who can answer it for me, is that tracking the economy only works until the point where the T's do an eco round. We can't put them at -11 here because they didn't invest into the round. So because they chose not to buy anything, FaZe, if I would put them at -11 now, it would be completely wrong interpretation of the money from my opponents. So when they take an eco, instead of changing the value, I just write reset. because now I know next round they will absolutely have a buy, otherwise they wouldn't take an eco. And it's obviously exactly what we can see. Then the whole thing starts over. In this round, FaZe win it. How many are they alive? They are 4 alive. So we can start a new chain. And this chain is now, it starts with +3. That means going into this, 3 people have a bank. You see? I feel like it's starting to make sense. It's also nice to see that it actually makes sense in practice. So what happens next? FaZe survive with 3. Okay. Next part of the chain. That's a +1, which makes it +4. Sorry. So how many people have a bank coming into this round? Not many. I mean, it is the last round, so maybe they're just also spending literally everything they can. Like, they are all buying head armor and full grenades and stuff like that. But I would still say, obviously, the money here is spread out. Normally, it probably wouldn't be this spread. It's the last round of the half, so it doesn't really matter to balance the economy at this moment. But they do have at least one bank, right? Like, oh, well, not really. This is like 3k, and then there's a little bit over 3k, and then another 2400 on top. So let's just call it, rough estimate is 10k. It would be honestly really nice if I could see this on. Wait, 10k is like way off. Let's call this a 8.5. So 8.5 is still enough for at least a bank for 2. But yeah, it is. This system is not yet perfect. And I promised you guys that when we would get a little bit further into the system, I'd talk about, some of the weaknesses. So one of the weaknesses is what happens if T save by running the timeout. So they save their weapons, but they don't get money. Well, I'm pretty sure there will be a really easy way to think about that, but just I haven't had the time to actually sit down and look at it from all angles. That's why I'm hoping that throwing this out in the universe, maybe someone else can do it. Also, the tough part is when there's an eco round, you need to remember it's a reset instead of, keeping on adding to the value. And so when I was thinking about this, my idea of, let's call it inventing this system, was that I wanted to simplify economy to make it possible for a beginner to track economy, right? You be the judge if you are a beginner. Was this at all helpful to you? Because I don't know. For me, as a former professional and now also a professional coach, tracking economy is second nature to me. Like, it's not, I'd say, difficult. It's just, I just check how many people are alive and I understand it, right? But I recognize that for some, this card counting system for the economy, it might actually be easier, and that's why I want to share it. But I can simplify it further. And I'm sure, by the way, also there's other weaknesses or other strengths to this that I just haven't found yet, because it actually doesn't really make sense for me to use this system because I understand the economy without the system. This is simplifying the economy, right? If I had more time, I'd sit myself down and I'd actually think this through, and I'm pretty sure there must be... This system will work. This system will work if, you just set rules, like having the system, and then also having the rule, like rule 1. If the opponents do an eco round, it's a reset. If they save, it's this and this. And if you just understand the system and just have like 2 or 3 rules, this probably works really, really well. But again, I said that I could simplify it further, and simplifying it further, right? Let me do a line here. So simplifying it further is basically if the opponents are 0 to 3 people alive in the previous round, it means don't build up, like don't have another buy round bank. So obviously I'm now saying 0 to 3 people alive. And here we gave 3 players alive a positive number. So why is that? Well, the reason why in this case we are saying 0 to 3 people are alive in the previous round is like almost a negative for the opponent is because here we are specifically, we're not talking about individual banks. So these numbers track individual banks being built up on the opposing side. But here we
You're
are
no longer screen
simplifying it.
sharing, by the way.
Oh, amazing. I didn't know I was connected back, but yeah. I've been missing you guys, not gonna lie.
I figured you knew. There's only 2 people in here. That's good though.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. What are the odds that Discord
worries.
just
Sorry about
crashes
that.
for like 25 minutes in the middle of the
It
session?
was very odd.
Yeah, it was. I'll catch you up to speed, okay? Because I now had to just, the show must go on and all that type of thing. Basically, we use this system to track the economy. And so we started in round 2, where FaZe were alive with 2 people. And so we gave them a value of -1, like -1, right? Which, according to this, I guess this legend, we can call it, they have to get a value of -1. Yeah? You guys following that?
Yep.
So what we're tracking here, the minuses and the pluses, are about the individual banks. So a negative, let's call it a negative bank score, is actually, it just talks about, are they able to buy if they lose the following round? So going into this round, they were 2 alive. Now they have to drop things around. It means if they lose this round now, they won't be able to buy into the next round. But then what happened was they survived with 5. And so surviving with 5, we gave them a +5. But then we had the -1, and then the +5 on top, which became a +4. Yeah? So this meant going into this round, they had basically enough money banked to count for 4 individual banks. Does that kind of make sense for you guys?
So you're saying, if I understand correctly, +1 means that they have enough money for one person to buy, whereas like a +5 means that all 5 can buy, correct?
Yes, basically a +5 is like if the team loses the round, they still all have one individual bank on top.
Okay, so if you're using this, and let's say they all died.
Yeah?
If they all died and they have a +5, means everyone can still buy, is basically, I think, my understanding. But my other question is, do you carry that number onto the further round? Let's say all 5 don't die one round, then they don't die in the second round. Does that become +10? You see what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works, actually. And this is why, so like here, for example, you guys can see my screen with the notepad and the skybox in the background, right?
Yep.
So I explained this obviously in the video, I'll explain to you as well, but right now they are at a +4, so they have a very healthy bank, right? They have enough money to basically sustain, is sustain the right word? Either way, it's like,
Yeah.
okay, to sustain 4 players, right? So now they actually go and lose the round, they're obviously 0 alive. That's why we gave them a value of -5, and then they actually became a -1. So even though at this moment they had pretty good money, when they buy into this round, they buy into it so heavily, as you can see, that if they lose this round now, they won't be able to buy into the next, exactly because they have a negative score at this point. Yeah? Then after this round, they actually win the round, but only one person survives. So 1 player alive, we give them a -3. So the -1 with the -3 becomes a -4. This means going into this round, again, you can see they are broke. Like, if you put all their money together, that might just be enough for one person to buy, which this number basically defines, right? Like, it's a -4 because one guy can buy and 4 can't.
But you still have to take into account what the previous number was from the previous round, right? So, for example, let's say if they were +10 from the
Yeah.
previous round because they hadn't died for 2 rounds. Even though they're -4 at the end of this round, there'd really be a 6, which means they technically still have enough to buy for everyone. Correct?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. That's why the -1,
Okay.
when they had one player alive, we added on a -3, which made them -4, right? So we are like just it's like literally addition and subtraction, right? Like so the -1.
That's-
Yeah, does it make sense now?
Teach us how to do addition and subtraction.
So yeah, I mean,
Unless you suck in math.
yeah, exactly. And then, but this is why, like, this is my point of like this simplifying the economy, right? So here now they are at a -4. You can see they are broke. Like if they put all their money together, that's enough to pay for one guy. But then there's 4 people who can't buy. That means if they lose this round, they have a very big negative like bank score, and so because of this, they won't be able to buy if they lose. But then, lucky for them, they win with 4 alive. 4 alive, we go to the legend. It means a +3, so the -4 becomes a -1. This means when they go into this round, they have like enough to pay for 4 people, basically, because it's like one guy has a bank, this guy has a bank, this guy has a bank, and they have some residual cash, which put together, and after losing the round, if that's what happens, they would still be able to buy at least one weapon, probably. Then what happens is they lose with 0 alive, of course. So now going into this round, they are able to buy. Well, we expected them to be able to buy with 4 because we gave them a score of -1. But here instead they were only able to buy with 3 players, and then Frozen got Tech 9 armor and grenades, right? Elise has nothing, so I guess in a way it kind of still works out, right? But then we have to also add on that now they survive with 0, so going into round 8, they are actually at a -6, which means if they were to lose this round, they're going to be absolutely broke, because -6 means they literally have so little money. Like they can't even afford a weapon on one player, basically. And what happens? They die 5. What happens next round? They only have, like, they each got 1,900 for losing. So Kerrigan literally had $0. Rain literally had $0. Elise had 350. Frozen $200. And Brokey had $100, right? So that's then the part of the session where it's like, for this money system to work, whenever the opponents take an eco, instead of writing a new value, so for example here FaZe are going to lose the round with 0 alive, instead of the value becoming -11, which wouldn't really make sense, right? Because they just took an eco round. Whenever the opponents take an eco round, you have to do a reset. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the eco round breaks the chain. Like the rounds are no longer linked. And then you can start over with a new chain. So that was what I was doing. The next round, we've now at the reset, which means the score is like a straight 0. FaZe are going to use like all the money that they have, basically. And that means if they lose this round, they're going to be broke. But they win it. They were 4 alive. We give them a -3, and so on and so on. So that's basically how I've tried to simplify the economy system, right? And I'm really happy that I managed to get connection to Discord as well, so I can tell if it makes sense or not. Okay? So I don't know. Do you think that if someone like me or someone else were to invent almost like a card counting system like this for CS, do you think it would be easier for beginners to track economy? Because instead of actually understanding the economy, all they have to do is just understand these values and just understand how to put them together.
Potentially, you could just make a website where they input the data after every round and it just spits it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's $1 million idea.
Well, yes and no. Because there's still a lot of factors like T side, CT side. I think T side has an advantage. Some of their weapons are cheaper. CT side, you got to buy a kit. You know what I mean?
It doesn't.
Armor.
It doesn't have to be like that throw though, it can literally just be enough. Like they can have a buy this round or they can't. They're gonna be on pistols this round. They're gonna be on a full buy this round. They have to save, that kind of thing.
See, the thing is, I don't know if you know this, NATO, but I think it's called, I think it's Curse Forge, maybe, or what's the other thing that, you know what I'm talking about? There's like a
No, I don't know it
application.
actually.
Oh, there it is. It's Overwolf. Okay.
Oh yeah, that one
Oh,
I've heard about. It's like an
okay.
overlay, right?
Yeah. Overwolf has a thing in there, I believe, that actually has a CS economy
Oh really?
calculator. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, so just to give you an idea, so while you're playing with this idea, I think you should also take a moment to also check out the Overwolf thing to see if the economy, because I feel like if it's already been like if Overwolf's thing is sufficient to help even like amateurs, then it might be, you know, then maybe you don't need this system. But on the plus side, the system would be like, you know, would be, you know, I guess useful for people who don't know what they're doing, you know, or when they're just starting out. But it all depends on whether or not they're good at math or not, too, as well, I think, because that's also a lot to like kind of remember. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's the thing.
I'd argue
If you
it's very
just use
easy.
the team chat, right? So instead
Yeah.
of even thinking about the numbers, if you just have this on a piece of paper next to you, you don't even have to like understand any math. You literally just have to be like, you check after every round. Oh, there were 2 players alive. You just write down in the chat -1, and then you just remember that number because you have it in your chat. So when the next round starts, you just look. You look at the legend. Oh, there were 5 players alive. That's a +5 onto the -1, and then you like you don't really have to keep it all in your head. You can literally just use the
I'm just
in-game
saying,
chat.
I know some people who couldn't even do this. You know what I
That's
mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely. I get it, and I agree with you as well. But for sure, if you have a team of 5, someone has to be able to do this. You know, like that's the point of simplifying it. I think also this idea with like overoff is good, but I think it's not allowed in league play, right? So that would
well,
probably
that's
help you
true.
when you're
Yeah.
playing Premiere or something like that. But I would imagine that any kind of like overlay is blocked on
Yeah, I
Faceit,
didn't,
for
I didn't,
example.
yeah, I didn't, yeah, I didn't think about that, about, you know, whether it's competitive versus like, you know, just playing Premiere.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I do have one more thing because I said I don't know if you, you guys had connection to me or I had connection to you or whatever when I said this, but I did say that for the people who would like it even more simplified, there is actually a way to look for it in an even more simple way. And I was starting to write that when I reconnected with you guys. So basically, if you want to even further simplify this to the point of it being very easy to remember and anyone can kind of track this and remember, this is like if the opponents are 0 to 3 people alive, so between 0 and 3 people alive in the previous round, it means they don't have another buy round banked. And the question that I would like to ask, but I had no one to ask it to until I reconnected with you guys, is why am I here saying 0 to 3? Why is it not 0 to 2, which was our negative value?
Maybe because of maybe utility. 2 guys have to drop and that's some extra maybe kit. I don't know. Make it simplified.
No, it's not exactly that. Actually, it's hidden in this text. There's one thing that I changed with the bottom part, which simplifies it further, but also changes it a little bit. It's one specific word. Any ideas?
Bank.
Is it because your, what do you call it? Your legend?
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you called it?
Yeah, yeah.
Mentions that there's 3 players alive. You can only buy 1 or +1.
Yeah, so what does the +1 mean?
That you can only afford to buy for 1 guy as opposed to like 3 guys or 2 guys.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And so the word that I've added here to simplify it further is actually the one that's underlined, right? Here, I made it a team thing instead of an individual thing. So
not enough for everyone is basically what you're implying.
yes, exactly. So here we are saying if the opponents are 0 to 3 people alive in the previous round, this means that, here with these numbers, we're tracking individual buys. So each player's buy, right? Like residual cash per player. And if you want to simplify it further, you can just make it so if the opponents are 4 to 5 people alive in the previous round, they bank a buy round. Like, let's write it actually like this instead. Don't bank a buy round. So basically, you can simplify it even further like this. You can check, were they 3 people alive or were they more than 3 people alive? If they were more than 3 people alive, it means that they will definitely have basically like a buy round in their pocket. Like, they have so much money that even if they lose, they can buy on all players. But if the opponents survive with only 3 people alive, they probably can scrape by, but it's not a true buy round. Like, it will probably be some kind of mixed buy. And so, yeah, this is like a further simplified version. It's way easier to, use and calculate with. That's also why, let's say the opponents are 4 to 5 people alive. They bank a buy round, and the next round, they are 4 to 5 people alive again. What does that mean? Any ideas?
Yeah, doesn't it mean that they're saving enough up to buy everyone on the team for another round?
Yes, exactly. So they bank an additional buy round, right? So if they've
'Cause
been
no one
4 to
died, so no one lost their rifle, so they don't have to rebuy.
Yeah, exactly. So for every time that there are 4 to 5 people alive, like especially if it's in a row, they bank a buy round, which means that if this happens, 2 or 3 times in a row, each time they bank an additional buy round. So if they survive with 5 people 3 rounds in a row, you basically have to, beat them 3 times in a row just to break their money as well. And that's why this is like super simplified. And is something that a beginner can just use, right, to hang on to. And I think it's a really cool way to think about it. The reason why I personally believe more in the card counting system is it's slightly more complex, but I think it's possible for a beginner to understand and actually pick up. And I do think if you actually pick this up early, you could probably even become a professional with the card counting system. Like, at this moment, it seems confusing because they've never used it. But I do think if people would learn this as one of the early things in their Counter-Strike career, this is something that could travel with you for your entire career. And does anyone here have an idea why I personally think that even though this is more complex, it hides more information? Like, why would I think that this is still superior even though it's more complex?
What happened when they get a knife? Do you do 1 extra value?
Yeah, I mean, that's some of the
Instead
things.
of +1, it's like +2.
Yeah, that's one of the things. Like, I haven't really thought it through, right? Because I mentioned also when I lost connection, what happens if T's save their rifles by letting the timer run out, right? What then? Because then they save their weapon, but they don't build an individual bank, even though they were alive. So you need a rule for that. You also need a rule that says that when the opponents take a full eco, that's a reset. And also, what if people get knife kills, for example? But yeah, I think the knife kill thing is so kind of rare. And also, if you just understand how much money you get for a knife, which is $1,500, then it's like you can just remember that basically. Like $1,500 instead of $300, it's not enough to bank another buy round for an individual. It's just enough maybe to change the M4 to an AWP. If that makes sense.
I have a question. Do you
Yeah.
think, even though, let's say that pro players, they use this kind of system, do they track every single bit? You think it's like SMG kills of the $600 extra is not like just a rifle?
I can safely say they do that. It's not so detailed as in like, oh, they got 2 SMG kills, so they blah blah blah, but it is like absolutely a thing at the highest level of play that the good teams will be like, or we lost a round, but they got 4 kills with a Mac-10, so they have extra money, and they start like basically getting 4 kills with a Mac-10 instead of getting it with an AK, right? That's $300 bonus per kill. That means $1,200 extra. That's basically like another knife kill, right? That might just mean they can get an earlier AWP, or they have like a little bit of extra money. So it's not that they count the amount of SMG kills down to the exact number, but absolutely, if someone gets a lot of SMG kills, that's something that gets mentally noted and brought up. So yeah, that is something that happens absolutely.
But it's only the IGL that tracks,
Well,
or is it everyone?
Not necessarily.
I would say it's everyone, but also a lot of teams, mine included, have someone who is not the IGL, who is like an economist, and their job is like not to call rounds, but just call the opponent's economy. That way, the IGL can focus on calling. Because sometimes as IGL, you will be like, "Oh, let's do A rush now," and then the economist is like, "No, we shouldn't. They have low money." And then IGL will be like, "Oh yeah, okay, then we shouldn't do that." But if the IGL has to keep track of the money and also call, it can sometimes mess
But
up.
doesn't it make sense? You have 15 seconds, and when the IGL comes with a, okay, we're gonna do this, and when the guy who has the economy sorted cancel it and says you have to do something else, and then the IGL has to say something else.
Well, because the
Um,
In a
IGL's
15
mind's going
seconds
to be.
call.
You have to understand, like the IGL's mind is also very preoccupied, thinking like a lot of things. I mean, IGL is not as simple as saying let's go A or let's go B. I mean, there's a lot of involved being IGL. Sometimes they have to think a round or two in ahead.
yeah, and I think the answer I would give to your question is that if you're an IGL, you make a call, and then the sort of economist says, "No, let's not rush A because they have low money," right? The IGL will always have the option of saying, "No, I still want to do it," or what will more likely happen is that the IGL says, "Oh, okay," and then the IGL might not have as much freeze time to call. But in general, when you play against low money, you don't really want to do something fast. So if the IGL makes a fast call, like let's rush A, and the economist says, "You know what, this is a bad call," or like not like that, but we'll just say like they have low money, then the IGL will probably call, "Okay, let's just play default," or something like that. And because of
And
that, it's not so.
that's what default's there for anyway, right? It's to give the IGL something to fall back on always, even if their plans get called off.
Yes and no. I guess in this case, it's just like you don't want to make an all-in call against people who are likely to stack, and people who have low money are likely to stack. So a default is typically better because then your opponents have to make the first move and you can react, which is normally a lot easier. Like if you full commit to rushing B and the CTs are full stacked on B, you probably won't have time to backpedal. But if you play like just a really slow round, controlled, you take away map control, you can make way more informed decisions. It's like you can use the information you gain in the round instead of basically calling a coin flip. And like that's why the general rule is that when you're playing against low money, you want to play slower as a team.
No, what I meant by what I said is that when he said that, oh well, you waste your whole 15 seconds calling a play, and then it's getting called off because of the economist saying no, we don't have the money, or the other team, has money that makes it difficult to do that play. Is that you always have the default play to fall back on in that sense. He doesn't have to like think of a new play. You can just always fall back on defaulting.
Yeah.
I think it.
I get what you meant, but I just think it's not default is not necessarily something IGLs fall back on because it's easy. It's just more like it's the default is like the bread and butter of Counter Strike. Like it's especially against low money, it's like just a good call. Like if you have a good default, more so than it's like a get out of jail free card. If that makes sense. What did you want to say, Dibmo? Sorry for interrupting a little bit.
No, I forgot when it took the verse.
I'm so sorry, man. I do have one question for you guys though, because we're already like a little bit above time, but I don't want to skip this because I actually think this is quite important. So this is a really simplified version, of the card counting system, right? If this one is so simple and it sort of works, why, when this is more complex, do I still think that the card counting system is a better system, and that if I had to choose, I would use the card counting system?
Would you doing this straight out of the start? So we win the first gun round, they're -5. And when you realize the eco, you're doing a +5.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess you joined to the session a little bit late. I've kind of already
Yeah.
explained it for an
Okay.
hour, and I first had to explain it
Okay,
in
I
the
will
video.
watch it later.
Yeah, I think you should, because I first explained it when the Discord was down, and then I had to re-explain it. So I think explaining it for the third time in the same video would be a little much, right? But I'll be happy to upload the video really quick on YouTube, and then I can just send you guys the link, and you can check it out. Or even on like this Gosu website is probably better. But basically, I'll give you the answer to the question, because I actually think it is an important part of the session, and I don't want to miss out on this. This down here is very simplified. And if you're looking to very easily, but not so accurately track economy, instead you're just tracking strictly buy rounds, this is superior, right? It's very easy. You won't lose track of it most likely. And it gives you a pretty good feel of what you're going to be up against. The reason I think the card counting system is better if you actually learn how to do it is because the card counting system tracks the individual players' banks. So, for example, when you have a +1, that means the team doesn't have, like your opponents don't have enough to probably have a fantastic buy round. But this +1 could mean that they can have like a hero up, because one guy had an additional individual bank going into this round, and maybe with the way the economy has played out, he can buy a hero AK, or he can buy a hero AWP. So by tracking not just the buy rounds, but also the individual banks, you are able to predict, okay, when are they going to have an eco? You can predict, okay, when are they going to have a buy round? But you're also able to predict when is the team going to have low money, but one guy will have an additional individual bank. And that allows you to track the hero buys as well, which I don't know of any other system. Like, I have played pro, right? And I've been a pro coach and everything. But when people have money for a hero orb or for a hero AK, that is extremely hard to track. Like, I don't think I've played in a pro team where we have consistently been able to be like, oh, by the way, remember 3 rounds ago, this one guy survived extra, so they can have a hero orb now, potentially. You know, that just doesn't happen. And that's why I do think if you would be able to invent this card counting system in a way where it actually works, not only do you simplify it to the point of beginners understanding economy, you allow beginners to be able to track the economy, and actually you allow professionals to more accurately predict the economy, even people who have been doing this for ages. So one last thing I will say, and then we'll probably do like a couple of questions, is that what a lot of professionals do is, Yikendar is kind of famous for this, but he has like money binds. So when the round starts, he is a lot of the time the economist on his teams, I guess, and he would have like different binds on his keyboard where he would write like they have between 2,000 and 3,000, or they have between 3,000 and 4,000, or they have eco, or they have half buy, or they have whatever. And then he's like, just by pressing a button, he's sending that in chat. And that's super helpful, right? Because then he doesn't have to interrupt his IGL. And also, it's clear for everyone. So as you're running out of spawn, even if you didn't hear him say it, you will have it on your screen. So you're aware of it. It's honestly really nice. But that is, again, what is so beautiful about this bank score, or this like card counting system, is that you will always have it in the chat. So when people see a negative number, that means one thing. When people see a positive number, that means another thing. And so, yeah, my opinion is, if someone was to make rules that cut out the bullshit, like, yeah, if they save weapons, and they did it by running out the clock as T, so they didn't get extra money. How can you explain that in a good rule? Eco means reset, like break the chain basically. And probably there's a few other things, like what happens when CT save on rounds where the bomb explodes and then they still get money, but they lose the round and it builds their loser bonus. And like, it is a little bit grimy. Again, if I had the time, I would sit down and do this. Maybe I can find time for it even in my summer vacation. Who sees? Like, who knows? But I do think that this has the potential to kind of revolutionize people's understanding of Counter-Strike economy, both at the professional level, where it probably won't change a whole lot, but might change things like hero buys, being aware of it, but especially for like lower level players or younger players, like 13-year-olds who are like extremely sick at Counter-Strike, probably don't understand economy. If you teach them this system from a young age, they just will understand it, or at least have the ability to accurately track it very early on. And I think that's what's so beautiful about this card counting system and applying it to Counter-Strike. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yep.
Nice. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, my yap session is over. So now you guys have a chance to yap or ask questions if you would like.
I'll be honest. I think I need some time to digest this.
That's
No,
fair.
because there's really, I think there's a lot here to kind of think about, before I really would have questions.
Yeah, understandable. I mean,
May I ask
yeah, go
some
ahead.
questions that is not really related after the
Yes,
session?
absolutely. I mean, you can do it now. I'm sure the people in the YouTube video will want to listen to it as well. I think maybe, I don't know how big your questions are, but maybe let's keep it to 2, because I actually have to wake up in like 7 hours and I still have work to do after this session. So just that I don't die, you know? So if you have like a couple of questions, like 2 questions or something, I'd be happy to answer.
Go ahead, ask it.
Yeah. Or is it like something you'd rather not discuss in a video?
How about preparation of a match? Not
Yeah.
like aim-wise, but like mental and focus.
Yeah.
Any like suggestion, or is there anything you do so I can get a picture of it?
So if you are bored, I made a video about how to anti-strat, where I'm looking through like I'm talking about what things I do to like make a game plan or understand. Yeah, I guess how to
I mean
anti-strat.
like individual
Mm-hmm.
set, not the team-wise.
So I do still think that it's worth it if you know you're playing a match against some team to look at the player you're playing opposite of, right? Like if you're a B player on Mirage, for example, it's nice to know how the guy you're playing against, is he playing aggressive? Is he playing passive a lot? That way you are in the right mental already when the match starts. Like you know what you can expect. So I think that's an important part of it. But otherwise, one thing I always did on game days, some would probably call it excessive, but I would always do first I would do 20 minutes of one tapping, and then I would do 20 minutes of spraying in deathmatch. Like first 20 minutes of deathmatch only one tapping, then I would do 20 minutes of spraying on deathmatch, and then I would do another 20 minutes, which would be like focused practice on like it would be focused practice on what I felt like I was worst at that moment. So like, if I felt like my one taps needed more time, I'd give them another 20 minutes. If I felt like my AWPing was poor, I would spend 20 minutes playing AWP deathmatch. If I felt my pistols needed work, I would do pistol deathmatch. And that was like a 1 hour routine I would do always on game days to warm up, basically. And then also, when you do it that much, when you do like an hour, it's a warm up and in practice in one. So you save the time, kind of. And it was what I needed on days where I was playing to like really feel like my aim was crisp.
See. So just routines. Have a good routine
Yeah.
towards the team you're going to play. I guess. Okay.
Yeah, and on that as
It's
well.
no walk or nothing.
No, I didn't have something like that. I mean, I tried to always make sure I had enough to eat and drink, get some fresh air as well. It's good if you can do any physical activity, but I didn't. I didn't have like a workout schedule or something like this. It was mostly a routine for like warming up and stuff like that.
Yeah. Last question.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for if my team lacks a little bit what's it called?
uh,
What's the English and
try to say
English?
you're Swedish. I can tell by your accent, right? Or not?
Intention or like calling mid round. You interact, make plays for their own. What's it
Yeah.
called?
So like, like intuition, or like
Intuition. Yes.
okay,
Intuition.
we got there, man.
How do you make my players do more intuition? It's like
Mhm.
instead of me micro a lot, I want
Yeah.
them instantly to do that. But they're
Yeah.
so
It's like
focused on the
asking how your
crosshair.
players can have game sense.
No, but I think it's actually like a little deeper than that, just because it's like, you know, firstly you just need to, your players need to understand what kind of levels of freedom they have. If every time they try to make an individual play, if you or someone else on the team yells at them like, why the fuck are you doing that, blah blah blah, they're not going to want to do it, right? So you need to have like a team conversation about, hey, I as the IGL, I give you guys freedom to make your own plays, and this is what's going to make sure that our game isn't like predictable and isn't stale. So sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work, but it's part of Counter-Strike, and I will want you to do those plays. That's gonna help them a lot, so that they know how much freedom they have. But then also, it's like, if you call a set strat, like an A execute, a lot of the time a pro team will have, entry pathing down and stuff like that. So it's there's not a lot of wiggle room in the strat. Like, people have to throw this smoke and run this way and do this and that, and you can't expect that much intuition because it's a set strat. But if you're playing a
I-
default, then you should absolutely expect people to play with a lot of intuition, because that's the whole point of a default. A default only works if people do what they think is correct. So really, it also depends on, what kind of call you're making. If you always call set strats, then your teammates can't go outside of the boundaries, basically. If you always call default and they don't do anything, then you guys need to
Yeah.
have a talk about why that's not happening.
I'm not the IGL, but my IGL says
Oh, okay.
intuition needs more of it.
Yeah.
And it comes out. We're doing default, and we're doing like for example, where it does two, our default is taking short, whatever,
Yeah.
And it's a kind of like a lurk smoke short, but we need the mid smoke at CT, and sometimes it just crumbles. It's just the AWP is supposed to do the smoke jump down, the smoke, because he has the only one has the smoke, but he lacks the intuition to do so.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of slow.
Yeah. I get it, but I will also say, like, this intuition is like, that's what separates the great players from the bad players, like, it's the same if you would say to a football player, you just have to, like, know what to do. It's like, that's what everyone wants. Intuition, it's not easy to do it right. That is really what makes you a good or a bad Counter-Strike player, so it is just something that takes time.
Yeah, I guess my RJL had to micro more at the moment.
Yeah.
Got to make your IGL sign up for Gosu Academy.
That's actually true.
He signed up, but he's not here, so I am.
That's too bad, man.
Well, you found a new
you get
IGL, I
yourself
guess.
some extra- Yeah.
Find another IGL.